In those situations, it's very common that you have one very dominant personality and one personality who was more of the go along to get along personality, we'll call it. So I've had to deal with a lot of narcissists, a lot of toxic personalities, and really, if I hadn't learned how to be a stellar master negotiator in those situations, I never, ever, ever would have made it. I would have been eaten alive.
Welcome to the Susan Sly Project, where entrepreneurs rule, startups launch, and the side hustle becomes the main hustle. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Susan Sly.
Have you ever been in a situation where you feel bullied, intimidated, or maybe you're thinking, I really want to succeed, and there are so many barriers, and those barriers are showing up as people? Well, my guest today was voted the #1 attorney in the United States by US News and World Report and Legal Elite. Not only that, she's appeared on ABC News, Forbes, CBS, Time, Extra, Newsweek, the Huffington Post. On top of it, she's a mother of 4, which I don't even know because she doesn't even look young enough to have one, like old enough to have one. On top of all of this, she is a best-selling author. Her book, Negotiate Like You Matter, The Surefire Method to Step Up and Win, was written with the foreword by Robert Shapiro. I really don't know how she has crammed so much into this incredible career. So Rebecca Zung, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm so excited to talk to you. We are soul sisters.
We are. And in fact, we were talking for 40 minutes before we even started the show.
We couldn't stop. We're like, we better get this show done.
I want to jump right in and ask you, how did you decide to become such a passionate advocate for the underdog? Because when I look at your work, when I've looked at your interviews, I've been on your YouTube channel, someone like yourself doesn't have to show up and say, I'm going to advocate for this person who doesn't seem like they're going to come out on top. Where did that come from for you?
I think it came from a number of different places. I mean, one is that I have been representing people in divorce situations since, 1999. So I've only ever done high net worth divorce, high net worth, complex divorce litigation. So in those situations, it's very common that you have one very dominant personality and one personality who was more of the go along to get along personality, we'll call it. So I've had to deal with a lot of narcissists, a lot of toxic personalities, and really, if I hadn't learned how to be a stellar master negotiator in those situations, I never, ever, ever would have made it. I would have been eaten alive. Not just by the clients, but also by opposing counsel and judges. I mean, it's kind of a tough world, to be honest with you. But I've also had to deal with narcissists and toxic personalities in my own life, starting with being bullied when I was, 10 years old on the playground for being half Chinese. I mean, being half Asian while growing up in the 70s and 80s was not like it is today. I mean, as you know, in those days, people would call people Japs or things like that. So I had my share of bullying going on even back then. And even back then, I remember like formulating this thing in my mind, like, you guys are so stupid. I'm going to show all of you all like, and so just that feeling of I'm going to make it, and then go back and help those people who have dealt with it. I have such compassion for them, from my own personal experiences and from my professional experiences as well.
It's interesting you brought up bullying. Rob Moore was just on the show, and I'm going to do a shameless plug for other episodes of the show. If you haven't heard that interview, Rob was over $70,000 in debt and went on to build a $50 million real estate empire. So no joke. Rob and I were talking about being bullied as kids. And I remember those playgrounds too, getting called names, getting beaten up. And And Rob said that that really drove him. Would you say that being bullied is something that drove you to become the successful woman you are today?
It totally did. But as I got older and I started working with this one particular business coach who ended up becoming a very good friend of mine, she really showed me that actually that kind of, being driven by a negative experience can only get you to a certain level of success. Understanding that you actually have the power yourself to create your own success and create who you want to be and put your word to something and see it come to fruition is actually so much more powerful than I'm going to show you that I'm better than you, or I'm going to show you that I can make it despite you, or blah, 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 whatever any of that is. I mean, the real power is going, hey, I send you light, namaste. And I'm having my life over here, regardless of whatever you're doing, and has nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that growth, and sometimes what propels us to one level isn't going to be the thing that propels us to the other. And I found over years and years in human empowerment that the people who try to get to a next level, let's say they get stuck, but they were motivated by a painful situation, when that no longer serves them, it's just like they keep going round and round and round until they break through. I want to ask you, there are a lot of people. We have, we're 91 countries with the show. There are people saying, I'm not sure if I'm dealing with a narcissist or not. And there might be women or there might be men in toxic relationships, and they're wondering, how do I know if this person is a narcissist?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I always love that question because it's not necessarily who you think. For one thing, it's not just because somebody thinks highly of themselves or they say anything nice about themselves. I mean, and especially as women, we're conditioned to not say nice things about ourselves and not put ourselves forward because it can come off as being braggy or whatever. And then people that go, oh, well, she must be a narcissist or he must be a narcissist. It's not necessarily that, because there are covert narcissists out there who never say anything good about themselves. They just use passive aggressive methods. So I mean, it's a person who actually has no inner sense of value, no sense of self. So they have to derive all of their value from the external, whether it's in the form of money, prestige, adulation, compliments, or in the form of devaluing or debasing people, treating people poorly, controlling them. All of that gives them narcissistic supply, coupled with, so it's no value and no sense of self, of care, compassion, love, or empathy for another person. So it's both no sense of self, and because I have no sense of self, I don't have the ability to care for other people.
And people go for very long periods of time in relationships, both business and personal, with narcissists.
Oh, yes. I mean, I've had to deal with a couple of them myself, and it's just horrible. It's, I always say they cause drama, trauma, and chaos. Like it's just horrible. But, they are very good at what they do. They are master manipulators. They're excellent at love bombing you, their way into your world. And then they start treating you poorly. And if you start to pull away, then they'll love bomb you again and start, hoovering you. And then it's this horrible thing of love bomb to value, love bomb to value. And even in the discard phase, they can be love bombing you, which, sometimes people refer to as hoovering, because they want to keep you in their web of control.
When it comes to business, I'm thinking about past relationships, right? So it would be easy to say, oh, that person's narcissistic. But sometimes in a business relationship, there's something that just doesn't feel right. Are there some early warning signs that you can sort of elaborate on, that you're coming into a business relationship, maybe you don't know the person that well, that are red flags, like potentially this person is a narcissist, you need to, not be here?
Totally, because I've actually had to deal with that myself in a business situation, and they start off with love bombing just the same as they do in a romantic relationship, but in a business setting, it's going to be, oh my God, we're perfect for each other. We should be partners. Not just, collaborate with each other, but we should be partners. We need to be in business together. I want access to your stuff. I want access to everything you've already created. And they woo you in with ideas of, I have these key people that I could bring into the business. I have these skills I could bring into the business, and they want to move quickly. So they want to make sure that you are partners very, very quickly. And then as soon as you are partners or in business together, all of a sudden everything stops. They actually don't know anybody, or they don't bring people in, or maybe they do, but they don't give them to you. They don't bring the deals in, or they start bringing in money, but you're not seeing it. Maybe it goes into a different bank account. And you start questioning them. Where's the money for this particular transaction that I know that took place? Oh, I had to put it in my account because I wasn't sure how to put it into the business account. And I have to talk to my bookkeeper to find out how to put it in. And, I don't know exactly what the tax ramifications are. So we'll have to figure that out. I mean, there's like all this stuff is going on, and then months and months go by and the money is still not in there. And meanwhile, you're doing 90% of the work. All of this stuff that you thought they were going to be doing, they're not doing. And especially if they're covert narcissists, you just start to feel like they're not for you. You just really start to know that there's something going on. You start to suspect maybe that they're talking to other people about you or making deals on the side. I mean, I could go on and on because I actually had to live it, but
I've lived it. If we're having a confessional, lived it.
yeah, lived it. And it's horrible. And now you're in it because they've already love bomb your way into the actual partnership. And now you got to figure out how to get them the hell out. So, and you're doing all the work and you have all the ideas, and they're just, riding on your coattails, and feeling very entitled that you should be doing everything for them. And they should be being able to take all the credit.
So what I'm hearing is I've lived it. It's a very passive aggressive relationship. And the other modalities, because ultimately it comes down to control, right? And would you say someone has a narcissistic tendency if they do things like they'll compliment you, but it's that backhanded compliment?
Oh, totally. Totally. I mean, I've seen that too. I mean, even like passive aggressive things where it's like, oh, thanks for taking care of this. I noticed you forgot this, so I went and took care of that for you.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I had someone say to me, um, you know, they were wanting an introduction to someone I know, and someone I know really, really well. And they said to me, oh, well, other people have tried. Like essentially, be a good little girl. You're not as good as these other people who've tried. So I doubt you're gonna. And you know what it made me think? I'm like, I don't really want to help you.
No, exactly. And then you start seeing them love bombing other people, like they're starting to groom their new source of supply. And so they're starting to give like the things that they promised that they were going to do for you and your partnership to the new form of supply. And that's what happened with me. And I was like, please latch on to the new source of supply. Like, please let me be out of this as soon as possible. Go.
I have a friend living this right now, and it's tough because the other thing, and I'd love for you to speak to this because then we want to talk about negotiating with narcissists, but in general, when that narcissistic relationship is ending, it's been my experience that it can get really ugly.
It
What are some of the
does.
things that you've seen?
Well, it's whatever they were doing on a covert level in the relationship, they just start overtly doing, because you're either for a narcissist or you're against them. I mean, you
Mm,
can't just nicely walk away and wish each other well. It's got to be war. It's got to be, I have to get you before you can get me. It's got to be, I need to make sure everybody knows that you were the problem. You were the one that was that caused this. You have to look bad. And so they just want to take you down. And on top of that, they don't want to lose the supply that they were getting from you. So instead of whatever form they were getting before, which was you doing everything in the business relationship or you providing all this value for them, now they're going to get supply from making you squirm, making you miserable, trying to manipulate you, trying to control you, trying to intimidate you. So it just shifts into something like that, because they definitely don't want to have to give up that supply. It's, I will not be ignored. And so, maybe they're going to sue you. Maybe they're going to get a lawyer involved to try to make you feel like intimidated that something bad is going to happen to you. You can't just walk away from me.
mm. It sounds very selfish. And it's also this,
Oh, yeah.
below that, when I was doing my training to be an NLP therapist and trainer, one of the things that we looked at is what is below that. And I trained in NLP just to become a better negotiator, right? And a better stage speaker and all of those things. But what's below that emotion? What I'm hearing too is below this narcissism is pay attention to me. I'm deeply insecure. I have no problem making other people look bad for my own gain. And I will do so at all costs. And it's, it's very sad because it obviously doesn't end well. Let's talk about.
And they become their own worst enemies too, because once you're done with that, you never want anything to do with that person ever, ever, ever again.
Yeah.
And if you walk away, the old adage, don't burn bridges or whatever, maybe that person still might have done something for you. Maybe that person might still have been a good person to have in your world. But when you burn the bridges like that and do things that are just so horrible on the way out, the other person doesn't ever want it to see you again. They want nothing to do with you.
Yeah. The thing I want to say is it's okay, especially some of you who are watching and listening. You feel so guilty when you walk away from a relationship, even a toxic one. And it's time to grow up. Not everyone is there to be your best friend and your business partner. So let's say you're in a relationship or a negotiation with a narcissist. And it may happen because sometimes in business, whether we're talking M&A, where, if you don't know what that means, mergers, not you, Rebecca, but the audience, mergers. I know a lot of you, your first language is in English. It stands for mergers and acquisitions. You might even, whatever the case is, but you find yourself at a boardroom table or sitting across from a narcissist. What are your best tips for how to handle it, how to negotiate with that person? Because ultimately, I think we have to believe that there can be a positive outcome, right? Especially if we're forced into the situation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always say that 80% of a negotiation is won before you even walk into a room, and that 50% of it is mindset. I just had a conversation, I was telling you before we jumped on here, with Bob Proctor on Friday, and he was like, oh, it's 95%. And I don't disagree with him in a lot of ways that 95% of it is mindset. I mean, so often we have these limiting thoughts and limiting beliefs and limiting language, like they're more powerful than I am. They always get their way. There's nothing I'm going to be able to say, or I'll just ask for this. I don't want all of that. And just things like that. I'll never win this point. Things like that. Everybody believes this person. No one is going to believe me. When you say things like that, when you start off from that point, you will never, ever, ever be able to negotiate from a powerful place. So, starting off with understanding that your value is defined by you and
Mm.
you alone, and people will think what you tell them to think. I mean, I really want people to understand that people will think what you tell them to think. So if you tell them to think that you are strong and that you are confident and that you are valuable and that you're worth having a conversation with and giving value to, I mean, that's what a negotiation is. It's an exchange of value in some way. Then people will start to believe you. But you have to define that first within yourself. I mean, then of course we can talk about how you need to do the research for both sides, and you need to create your arguments, and you need to do your risk assessment, and you need to wear powerful clothing and use powerful body language and look at the colors you're wearing. I mean, I can talk about all that kind of stuff. Embedded commands. I mean, you were talking about NLP. I mean, you can use things like embedded commands, but really first and foremost, remember that you and you alone define your value, and people will think what you tell them to think.
Mm. People will think what you tell them to think. And 80%, or according to Bob, 95% is won beforehand. What would you say to the person who says, well, Rebecca, I'm just not that confident? How can
Yeah.
I win if I'm not confident?
Right. So, I mean, just starting to take the steps one by one, it just, the whole fake it till you make it thing is so true. I mean, just take it interaction by interaction, one line at a time or one step at a time, by just responding to an email by saying, I disagree with your characterization. I'm in receipt of your email, and I refute your allegations, without feeling like you need to defend yourself in every single point. And just, maybe pick out the one or two lines in the email that you have to respond to, and then take the rest of it and say, I'm in receipt of your email and I deny your allegations. Here's my response to the one thing I need to respond to. Just one email, and you start to go, okay, I did it. I hit send, so little steps, but, one by one, and you start to turn it around and start shift the dynamic, once you start shifting that dynamic and going on the offensive rather than constantly feeling you're on the defensive, you just start to feel better little by little.
You mentioned about the power colors, and I'm sure you've seen Amy Cuddy's TED Talk,
Mm-hmm.
the power posing.
Yes.
And, if someone doesn't know what that is, just, look up Amy Cuddy's TED Talk. It's fantastic. Yes. So what are the power colors? If you're showing up for a negotiation, what do you need to be wearing? How should you show up?
Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on what it is that you want to convey, right? I mean, because people think of red a lot of times, but red doesn't necessarily convey trust or good feelings. Red is ambulances, red is blood, red is emergency, so if you want to put somebody off, red is fine with that. I mean, but if you want to try to build trust and you want people to start thinking, that you have a rapport in some way, blue is a great color. Blue is water, blue is ocean, blue is, what doctors wear, their scrubs, banks. You see a lot of their colors are blues because of that. Greens are the same thing, because greens are, you see a lot of green in nature and ecology and organic stuff. I mean, so green is another good color of trust. Orange can be a good color as well. Yellow, not as much, because yellow can also be considered weak or coward. People call it, being called yellow is like means, coward. Black, again, is a power color. I think black is fine for women. It's not as good for men. White is fine. I think also for women, especially, white is God and purity and that sort of thing. So Purple is also a good color. Purple is actually, you see a lot of men of the cloth or people of the cloth wearing purple. So that's also a good color. It's also like auras and, good vibrations. So purple is also a good color.
That's tremendously helpful. I have a negotiation coming up. And so now I'm thinking, I mean, sometimes what I'll do is I'll wear very, very high heels. And because I'm 5'7", so that'll automatically, like, I have this one pair and it'll put me like close to 6 feet tall, right? And especially if I'm the only woman in the room, which is often the case. And that's a different story too. I want to ask you just a super quick question as we come to the wrapping this up, specifically for women. When women are negotiating with men, and if a woman is the only woman in the negotiation, because we're seeing this more and more now. I've had a lot of women founders on the show. Lori Harder was just on the show. She's doing a sparkling low carb wine alcohol startup. She's a multimillionaire in other verticals, but now she's coming into this space, and it's often her and just men. And this happens to me in technology too. So what advice would you give to women when they're negotiating with men? Because a lot of times as women, we're either going to sometimes shrink back a little bit, or we'll try to be like one of the guys. What should we be doing?
Well, here's the thing that I tell people a lot, and I've done, a lot of coaching of clients in these situations. And the one thing that men do have a bit of an edge over women with is that they have the ability to compartmentalize and really just take emotion out of a situation. I mean, especially in a high net worth divorce or something like that. I mean, it's all about money for them. And so when they're looking at a soon to be ex-wife across the table, they're not thinking about, geez, this person bore my children, raised my family, you took care of my home. They don't think about that. It's a money transaction. That's what it is for them. I mean, if you're talking about finances. But for women, they tend to put a lot of emotion into it. Does this person like me? Am I coming across sounding greedy? Am I asking for too much? Am I seeming too aggressive? We have all this inner dialogue that we add to it in addition to presenting whatever the offer is. And so for women out there, the more that you can take out those emotions, the better it's going to be for you. And then you're actually negotiating on a little bit more of an even playing field. I would say you can be passionate. I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with being passionate, but you don't want to get angry. You don't want to have tears. You don't want to be like, trying to play on people's emotions. Don't you care about me? All that kind of stuff just really makes you seem weak.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? All those things. I was being interviewed in Australia on the morning show, and this was a long time ago. I was promoting my book, The Have It All Woman, and the interviewer said to me, really, women have all these thoughts all the time. And I said, yes, we have 1,000 times the synapses between our left and right hemisphere of our brain. So we're thinking in cause and effect all the time, right? And he didn't believe me. And I said, I promise you, when you're making love to your wife, she's thinking, okay, what am I dressing the kids in today? Do I have enough groceries in the house? And he's like, that's not true. He called her on the break, Rebecca. And I was in the green room with Carrie Fisher, who was an outstanding woman, Princess Leia.
Love her.
He comes into the green room, and he was upset. He said, I called my wife and she said, you're right. And Carrie and I started laughing our heads off. And it's so true. And I thank you for that reminder, because it's something I need. I need that as well in my day-to-day world and business. So thank you so much. You have incredible resources on your website. I want to encourage everyone to subscribe to your YouTube channel. It's amazing. And number two, go to RebeccaZung.com. You have a free resource right there.
Yeah, so on my website, you can get the free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, or you can just go to winmynegotiation.com and get it. I have an easy to remember URL. So you can either go to my website at RebeccaZung.com or go to winmynegotiation.com to get it. And yes, youtube.com/Rebecca Zung. Come check me out, subscribe to me there. I'd love to include all of your people as part of my community.
Thank you. Because whether it's sales or it's personal relationships or it's business, we can all improve our negotiations. So Rebecca, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely adore the work that you're doing.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, wherever you are in the world, Rebecca and I are leaders who ask for what we want. So we would love a 5-star review if you are on Spotify, iTunes. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment. And I actually am the one who goes and reads all your comments, not an assistant. And if this episode has been helpful, we know it has. We'd love for you to share it on your social. Tag me at Susan Sly on Instagram. Rebecca and I are going to be doing a Clubhouse room for women who want to crush it. So check that out. Follow us on Clubhouse. And with that, God bless. Go rock your day, and I will see you in a future episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another epic episode of the Susan Sly Project. For more tips, strategies, and ideas, visit www.susansly.com.